Bandwidth for First Updates Now is supported by AndyMark. Are you competition ready? Go to andymark.com and keep your team inspired. And by the Blue Alliance. Keep up to date on all live and archived First Robotics events and team stats at thebluealliance.com. First Updates Now is brought to you by viewers like you. Fun relies on the generous support of our fans in order to continue to keep creating content. Please consider donating, giving bits, or subscribing. Subscribe for a few bucks a month or for free through Twitch Prime. And don't forget that our subscribers get 5x chance to win on all giveaways.
All right, tonight on Any Way You Want It, we have district events galore, 2 New York State regionals to cover, the craziness that was all the fouls this weekend, and we'll give you a preview of tomorrow night's top 25. To get you started off, I'm Garrison.
I'm Audrey.
And I'm Sam.
All right, let's start off in New Jersey, where we've got the Bridgewater Raritan District event, hosted by Team 303, the test team. This event was a really interesting mix of teams, lots of first plays, quite a few folks who had already had practice on the field. Flying high in first seed was 2590 Nemesis, with their triple climb mechanism locking them into the first seed. Also at the top of the event list was 303, 1923, and 56, all with impressive runs of the scale throughout their qualifications. Aiming a little lower was the really impressive 747 robot, focusing on only switches in the vault. They ended up as a 5th captain, but would there be enough proficient scale bots left? Who would know? 1 and 2 seeds paired up, along with 3 and 4. A lot of impressive firepower for those alliances, but they wouldn't face each other until the finals. The playoff bracket was basically a clean sweep until the finals, all but quarterfinal 4 needing only 2 matches. Alliances 1, 2, 3, and 5 advanced into semis. For the first time in their match play so far, 303 revealed a working scale autonomous mode, a key advantage for them. Getting to that scale area is always helpful, and the autonomous race is definitely on now that we're approaching the midpoint of the season. On the other side of the bracket, the number 5 seed had to replace their captain 1257, facing the number 1 alliance of 2590, 1923, and 6860, the rookie Everybot, with a brand new partner in the mix. Number 1 moved on to the finals with some really intense scores, with Nemesis helping their rookie partners fly high, sailed on to the finals. 1 versus 2, the final showdown. 303, 56, and 6945's alliance was impressively versatile, with every robot switching around their roles throughout the match. In the first match, that versatility paid off, and the number 2 alliance made serious plays for the away switch once they guaranteed the scale. In match 2, 56 played a significant amount of defense, which caught them into 2590's frame for over 50 seconds, keeping both robots out of play, but the number 1 alliance made their comeback, taking both switches and ignoring scale play for a 306 victory. Finals 3, Alliance 2 wised up to the switch strategy and fired back hard, taking the victory and the banner for Bridgewater. Congratulations to Team 224 on their engineering inspiration and 1923 for their district chairman's awards, their first Kling Bling.
On the PA side, we had Springside Chestnut Hill. This was also quite a star-studded event with a few surprises and some guests from outside the region. Ranking first was 5407 Wolfpack Robotics, a team on the rise since their beginning, quite literally on the rise. This year with their double reverse 4-bar. They were declined by the number 2, 225, and picked 1218 Vulcan Robotics. 225 then went on to pick 2168, the Aluminum Falcons, or out-of-town guests. This was a bit risky, since 2168 had elevator trouble in their last qualification match. Somehow 103 lasted all the way to the 5th pick, which was a total steal for 316, the Lunatics, who somehow went unstolen themselves. That number 5 alliance, 103, 316, and 7110, lots of rookies in the playoffs lately, fought hard to the finals, taking their semifinal match to 3 matches against the number 1 alliance, 225, 2168, and 1168. On the other hand, swept all the way to and through the finals, taking everything in 2 matches. Their first final ended up a little shaky, with 2168's failed autonomous keeping them behind from the start. But they quickly caught up with 225's fast cycles out of their own platform zone, and the Falcons played a wave switch. 1168 made quick work of the vault, and the match was said and done by halfway through. Final 2, Blue seemed to hit their stride. With the luck of the randomizer, 225's 2 Cubiato was on display. Red played rougher, bringing some defense by 103. 2168 didn't have as much cube access as I'm sure they wanted to, liked early on. 225 took a hard hit halfway through the match, ended up on their side in Red's null territory. Their partners pushed them, and the Red took full advantage of the placement. But even those penalties weren't enough to overtake a dominant ownership and power play by the Blue. 225 redeemed themselves after being finalists in DC. 2168 won their second event in 2 weeks, and 1168 gets their first banner. Congratulations also to 1218 Vulcan Robotics on Engineering Inspiration and 433 the Firebirds on the District Chairman's Award.
All right, let's head up to Rochester, New York, where we've got our first upstate New York regional of the week, Finger Lakes. Many of these teams had already played a round of Power Up in the Central New York Regional Week 1, and it certainly showed. Most notably, the Central New York champions, Team 340, Greater Rochester Robotics, held the first seed for the entire event, ending with a ranking score of about 3.30. 340 was amazing, not just because of their stellar scale scoring abilities, but the ability to switch off the different roles, playing the switch, the away switch, and the vault when they needed to. As Friday turned to Alliance selection Saturday, there was no definite first pick for 340 that someone could peg down. Many of the top robots were similar in stats, but 340 knew who they were picking. It was certainly a lock. They selected Team 1507, the Warlocks, who boasted a consistent auto and a Tarzan climb that was compatible with 340s. Rounded off that alliance was Team 3550, Robotronics from Montreal. And then we entered the quarterfinal rounds and started off with a little bit of controversy. As auto started, 340 placed a cube on the wrong side of the scale for the first time ever this season, and 1507 didn't even move. That gave the A seed the advantage and facilitated the greatest upset I've seen so far this year against the then undefeated Team 340. I mean, besides whatever 1v16 basketball game was this weekend. Despite this being one of the best matches I've seen, it comes with a bit of controversy. 340 outputs the field configuration to their smart dashboard, and they checked this against what the field actually was in the match, and they weren't the same. After a conversation with the refs, First HQ, the FTA, and 1507, the match was not replayed. However, this didn't stop the first seed from taking the advantage back after the match, and they breezed through both the quarters and the semis and into finals. The other half of the bracket wasn't as clean, but had some stellar matchups that I think are worth highlighting. The 2v3 matchup in semifinals was pretty fantastic, with the scale tipping back and forth the entire match, and no one was really sure who was going to win until the last 10 seconds. We've discussed here how to come back from a deficit before, and it really isn't easy, but the third match of the series here proved that it was possible, and moved the second-seeded alliance of 1559 Deviltech, 5254 Hype, and 578 Red Raider Robotics to the finals. A brief history of finals, 340 has been finalist at this event for 8 years of the 13 years that this regional has existed, but has never won. Across the field from them, 5254 had been finalists 7 separate times within their 5-year history, but has never won an event. It was a really hyped-up matchup, but it turned out to be even greater than expected. After 2 matchups, it proved that 340 would break their curse and win the event with an impressive 16-1-0 record. Congratulations also go out to Team 1660, the Harlem Knights, for their second Engineering Inspiration, and Team 3015 for their well-deserved Chairman's Award.
All right, now moving over to New England, we had a couple of great district events. And coming into Reading, the North Shore event, the pressure was on the top teams to live up to expectations. We had 125, 319, and 1058 all already made it to the finals this year, but they came up short. 238 was the only team coming into this event with a banner under their belt already. But 319 and 125 had already qualified for champs because they went out of district and got wild cards. Talking to these teams, though, they made it very clear that qualifying did not change their mindset at all coming into district play. They were very much hungry to compete and win, and man, did they put on a show. Anybody not watching North Shore eliminations was missing out. The scale battles were absolutely world-class, and it forced those top-tier teams to be on their edge and play more dynamic than they normally would have. Ultimately, it was Team 133 Burt with their deceptively simple machine that claimed the number 1 seed, and they picked Team 319 Big Bad Bob with their first overall pick. Team 238, the Crusaders, seeded second and picked Team 125, the Neutrons. Each of those top 2 seeded teams controlled the scale for over 90% of the total control coming in through quarters and semis, just dominating their way to the finals. It all came down to those finals, which were absolutely as exciting as advertised. The scale battle was absolutely incredible. In the end, it was the alliance of Team 133 Burt, 319 Big Bad Bob, and their third pick, Team 1289 the Gearheads, coming out on top. The finalist alliance didn't go home empty-handed, however, as 238 the Crusaders went home with the Quality Award, and 125 the Neutrons took home their first Blue Banner of the year and capped off their event with Chairman's giving them a Kling Bling event for the third straight year and 4 out of the past 5 years. Now, just down the road in Fairfield for the Southern Connecticut District, it looked like it was going to be all about 195 and 230, maybe a side of 56-87. Then 95 showed up. And they didn't really just show up. They kind of dominated. They were first pretty much the whole time, and they ranked above the 3 powerhouses. They've been inspiring people with that build blog for years, and this year they brought it to the field. We got to pick Team 230, the Galehawks, for their alliance, leaving 195 the Cyber Knights and 56-87 the Outliers at that number 2 spot. Now remember, 230 Galehawks came into the event undefeated, 18-0, as they'd lost just 2 qualification matches in this tournament against really tough competition. 195 has been the best team in New England, hands down, the last couple of years. And the last time we saw these guys was on the field at Champs, where they lost in the division finals to, guess who? The Neutrons and 56-87, the Outliers. Now they're partners. And so let's talk about the Outliers for a sec. This high number team has been doing really well. They were in Einstein last year. They already have a district event win this year, and they're quickly becoming one of those household team names that you should know about. And Elam's here felt very similar to the North Shore event. 2 clearly favored alliances getting their way to the finals fairly easily. 95 the Grasshoppers and 230 the Galehawks. Their rookie partners, 71-27 Long Metal Robotics, dominated through the quarters and semis, giving up a grand total of 0 seconds of scale control overall in those rounds. Also in total switch control. So for every second the switch is controlled by somebody, they had over 65% ownership. That includes the other scale. For reference, number 1 seeded North Shore was only 59%, and the number 2 seed here was 48%. But in the end, the scale battle here was just about as good as in the other one, and it was the number 2 seed, the Cyber Knights, and their first pick, 56-87, the Outliers, with the rookie team 71-53, Eidos Dios, as coming out on top. 95 took a tumble in the second match, and they couldn't really recover. So the number 2 seed took the event, and I would also like to congratulate Full Metal Falcons on Chairman's and 2067 Apple Pie on EI.
Moving back to New York, Tech Valley was an interesting one last week. Early on, one team very clearly separated themselves from the pack. Fresh off their regional win at the inaugural Central New York Regional, 2791 dominated everyone else in the rankings. In fact, they averaged a 3.38 ranking score, with the next closest team being 1493 at 2.46, almost a full point lower. There were also definitely a few other strong teams at the event. One was 20, the Rocketeers, who ended up ranking 6th. 3990 Tech for Kids also put on an awesome showing, ending in the 3rd slot, and 1156 Under Control was my 3rd standout, but they dropped to 14th in the rankings with a very tough qualification schedule. It's also worth mentioning 1860. During alliance selections, 2791 seemingly won the event before Olymp started by picking Team 20. The real interesting storyline comes with the number 2 alliance, though. Team 1493, who clearly did good work on scouting, picked 1156 with their first, despite them seeding in the 60th percentile of the event. They completed their alliance with a very strong pick of 4458 Inferno Robotics, but the number 1 alliance didn't end up picking any slouch team, taking 3624 the Thundercolts with their last overall pick. Unlike everyone's March Madness bracket, this one was never really broken outside of a 4-5 upset decided by 3 matches. However, we had a bit of deja vu in semifinal 2, match 3. People who followed the Long Island Regional last year might remember when the impressive 5th alliance was eliminated despite winning its tiebreaker match. Well, this happened again, due to an issue with a yellow card. So basically, Team 3990 held up the scale for a few extra seconds in the wrong direction, may I add, which resulted in a red card. This was during Autonomous, which is definitely something to note. The crazy part, however, is both times these yellow cards have resulted in teams being eliminated, 1156 was on the other end of the glass. I'm not sure if the FRC gods love 1156 Maiju, but wow, that's a crazy coincidence. The parallels to last year didn't end, though, for Team from Brazil, though. Last year, after Bears squeaking into the finals, they won the event after taking down the impressive number 1 alliance after robot issues, forced to bring them the backup in form of Team 5123, the Mecha Dogs. This proved too much for them, and the number 2 alliance ended up on the winning event in Event 2. This wasn't just because of the robot issues, it also had to do with the number 1 alliance switching up their Auton and fears of fouls, but overall it was just too much for Alliance 1. The event ended up having 2 double climbing, with 11:56 taking home the chairman's and 51:23 being awarded engineering inspiration. Overall, I really hate how this event ended, as the Blue Lions really, in my opinion, did not deserve to be eliminated in their third semifinal. We'll talk about that more later.
All right. So as you kind of mentioned there, Spurkowski, we've been going through the New York events in MAR, and we've seen an increase in fouls this year. Specifically G25, the plates are not moved by power cubes, but robots. And as it stands, a rule penalizes a foul per instance of the scale move, plus an additional tech foul for every 5 seconds in which the situation is not corrected. Repeated instances have escalated rapidly to yellow and red cards this week, and affected teams who should have maybe ended up winning the event. So just quickly, what are some solutions to this? How and when should the yellow and red cards even be brought out?
Okay, I'm going to keep my opinion short because I was not there for any of this. I have not been involved, but watching on the webcast, I thought it was a little bit ridiculous that yellow and red cards were being thrown out that willy-nilly. Is it in line with the rules? Maybe. I don't agree with how they were given out at those events, and MAR had a similar issue at a couple of their events. I don't know how to fix it, though. I'm not sure that there's a better solution than what they have other than just training the refs.
Yeah, I mean, I also agree with that. It's really hard to come up with a solution. You know, you look at it from first ends, you look at it from team's end, and it's kind of like conflicting. But I don't know. I feel like referees should be less quick to spring to a yellow card, because it's just so damaging in eliminations to see teams go home when they won their match because of 3 seconds on autonomous that they accidentally held up a scale. It's really hard. I think a simple change would just be changing the rules to egregious or strategic instead of what it is now, which is repeated. As a referee myself, I haven't refereed this year just because I'm not old enough, but you know, it's a problem when you put repeated, because that can be 2 times. In the referee manual, it says like 2 or 3, but bottom line is the word repeated could just mean 2. And I think that putting egregious or strategic there would give refs a little more leeway to go by their opinions. And I think most refs would always go for the team side. So I think changing that rule a little bit would be in first best interest. And I also think that maybe changing up the rule in autonomous would be in their best interest, just way that autonomous is laid out this year. It's super easy to get a foul there or get a yellow card. And you don't really want to have teams toning down their autonomous just so they don't get a card. Because I feel like, I don't know, just it limits innovation a lot for no real good reason.
Yeah, something that's been brought up here is that when a team gets stuck under the scale and it's not something that they want to do, they're stuck on the other side and they're giving the other team points, that they wouldn't be given a tech foul for it because they're already being penalized the 2-point differential, and it just adds on. It's about a 7-point differential per second with the tech foul as it stands. So I know it's something that happened to the first seed at Tech Valley, but really in auto, I don't think it should be something that happens. It's such a small tolerance of error, and it really shouldn't be something that discredits innovation.
Yeah, I completely agree. Now, let's go ahead and move on to the FRC Top 25. We're going to give you some previews and a top 10 list of just the Northeast region. Let's go ahead and get started. First up on that top 10 list, coming in first place is Team 195, the Cyber Knights. At number 2 is Team 340, GRR, Greater Rochester Robotics. And the third spot is Team 2791, Shaker Robotics, followed up by number 4, Team 230, the Galehawks, 1507, the Warlocks, 225, Techfire, 125, the Neutrons. At the 8th spot, we have 319, Big Bad Bob, number 9, 133, Bert. And finally, closing out the top 10 is Team 195, the Grasshoppers. Now, I want to mention 95, the Grasshoppers, excuse me. And now I want to mention a couple that were close and didn't make the list. 5687, the Outliers, 2590, Nemesis, 238, Crusaders, and Team 20, the Rocketeers, all missed that top 10 list by just a couple of points.
Yeah, so I picked 2791 to go into the top 25, basically just because they dominated.
Yeah, some honorable mentions here from FLR. We have 5254 Hype and Team 1559 Devil Tech, both really great robots and deserve to be in there. Just a shout out for them.
All right. So again, I mentioned 238. I think they should be on that list as well. But let's go ahead and preview next week's tournaments and what's going on first in MAR next week.
All right, in MAR Montgomery, we've got Monty Madness, one of Libby's favorite events in MAR. Montgomery is upon us again. 1403 really knows how to run an event well. 39 teams are in their house. Strong teams we've already seen in this one are 25, 56, 222, 225, 1676. The list goes on. 2016, 3314, 3637. There's quite a lot of awesome robots at this event, and some who I know are going to really keep improving, like 1175, 341. The list just keeps getting longer. This is going to be a really strong field, especially since everyone's gotten their field time now. Expect an awesome elimination tournament, so tune in.
Yeah, this weekend at Pine Tree is going to be really strong too. 40 teams going up to Maine this weekend. We've got a lot of really tough competition, notably how being a number one seed at past events is not an outlier. We have 3 teams coming in with that distinction. 95, 133, and 5687 have all seeded first at least one event this year, and we're going to see who can top that spot, as all these teams have been very good at quals. We also have the Southeastern Mass finalist captain, Team 58, the Riot Crew, or the first pick at WPI, Orange Chaos, Team 4564. It's going to be really close at the top, and a lot of good scale battles coming down. I'm excited to see who's going to take this one.
Rounding us out, we have the first Lower New York event of the year up in Rockland County. HVR is looking like a tough one for all teams there, with quite a few very good teams making showings. There are, of course, the standouts who have played already. 694 Stipulse is coming off a decent run at CVR, where they seeded 5th and got into the semis. 2590 is coming off a finals appearance at Bridgewater after ranking 1st. And 5202, like Stipulse, is coming off a run in the semifinals. Or I think the best teams there will be 1796 and 3419. Both the RoboTigers and the Rohawks had very good years last year, with 1796 even getting on to Einstein, with 125 actually. Although I haven't been able to see their robots yet this year, it's safe to assume that they will both be pretty effective. In terms of rookie standouts, 6911 could do some damage after competing in 2869's Week 0 event, and 6928 is coming all the way from Paraguay, which should be interesting. Speaking of rookies, HVR is a whopping 8 in attendance, making up 20% of the event. A few extra teams to look out for would be Team 329, 229, 2601, 2875, 3950, and 5016. All of them have proven in the past that they can win events, and I'm willing to bet all of them will be ready to come play.
All right, y'all, that's it for us this weekend. Thank you to everybody that has watched. If you want more First Robotics in your life, I know I do, and you like what we do, all we ask is that you share the show with your teammates and your friends. We love watching First Nation grow. And you can always support the channel by liking our social media accounts or following the stream on Twitch. Or if you'd like to subscribe and actually more directly support our content creation, you can do so right here on Twitch with the subscribe, or you can give us some bits. We'll take anything you got. No matter what, we are delighted to have you on board. On behalf of myself, Audrey, and Sam, and our producer, Tyler, I'd like to thank you for tuning in tonight. And thanks to our moderator in chat. Next up is the Southern Fried recap. So go ahead and stay tuned. That's starting in a couple minutes. Thank you, everybody, and good night.